Assalamu alaikum. I hope all of you are fine. Okay, today we're going to continue our lecture series on different types of tissues in the human body. The topic we were studying last time was connective tissues, so we're going to continue that. So we studied that connective tissues are composed of two major components. One is cells and the second one is intercellular matrix. That scheme continues for our next topic too, that is bone. So bone is also a connective tissue and it is also composed of these two major structures, cells and intercellular matrix. It is a highly vascular mineralized connective tissue. It means it has ample blood supply, enough blood supply, and it is mineralized. Calcium phosphate is deposited in bones. So the complete name is, I think, calcium hydroxyapatite, that is present in the bones. But you may just remember it as calcium is deposited. That's why the bone is mineralized and it has rich blood supply, and it is consisted of cells and intercellular matrix. Intercellular matrix is a very important part of the bone. The cells are woven in between the intercellular matrix, and as we know, bone serves a very, very important function, that is providing the stability to our body, providing the skeletal system for our body. Okay, so the matrix of the bone is composed in part of organic materials, mainly type 1 collagen, and inorganic salts such as calcium and phosphate, as I explained to you earlier. So the intercellular matrix, the major components of that are type 1 collagen, calcium and phosphate. Okay, now a little overview, embryological overview of the development of skeletal system or development of bones. The connective tissue is derived from mesoderm. Now let's see, just a second, it is clear, yeah. Okay, so in the start there are only two membranes. There is a endoblast and epiblast, I think. Then a primitive streak neural plate is formed, just like here. From here a column like structure arises, that is neural tube, and the layers are divided from 2 into 3 layers. To count the 3 layers, the outermost would be ectoderm, then mesoderm, and then innermost would be endoderm. If we see in this picture, this is more clearer. Okay, so as you can see here, there is ectoderm, that is the kind of the outermost layer. Then there would be mesoderm and endoderm. Yolk sac here. Yolk sac is the main component that provides the nutrients to the baby. Okay, when we study embryology, you'll get to know it better, because it needs at least 3 to 4 lectures to properly understand this topic. All the things you need to know would be discussed further in embryology. Right now, you just need to know that the bones arise from the mesodermal layer. So, okay, in the body, they are from mesoderm. In the head region, they are from neural crest cells, and they are formed by a process which is known as endochondral ossification. Now, what is endochondral ossification? First, a model of cartilage is formed, just like this. Then multiple ossification centers appear within that model which start to ossify that cartilage, and in the end a bone is formed. So ossification is the process through which calcium is deposited and the bone is hardened. It is transformed from cartilaginous substance into bony material. Okay, so cartilaginous templates or models, they define the initial shape and position of the bone. Where is it going to be and what shape it is going to have. Then the cartilage is replaced by bone in an ordered sequence. Okay, so some bones such as the cranial are laid down with another process, that is via fibrocellular membrane, and that the formation of that bone is known as intramembranous ossification. So here we have two types, endochondral and intramembranous ossification. For endochondral ossification we need a cartilaginous model, and then the ossification centers appear within the bone. Whereas in intramembranous ossification, first there is a woven bone, then ossification centers start to appear, and then the bone is ossified into flat bone. Okay, so this is the main thing. Okay, so here it is a hyaline cartilage model. The first step in bone formation, just a model is formed. The first center to appear that starts transforming cartilage into bone is known as the primary ossification center. Okay, there is a layer that covers the whole bone from outside, that is known as periosteum. Endothelial, you can say endothelial lining. Okay, sorry, epithelial lining. There is a cavity in between the bone that is known as medullary cavity that contains the bone marrow, which helps in formation of blood cells. Okay, so first the primary ossification center is formed, then the secondary ossification center is formed, and bone starts to grow from the middle towards the sides. Okay, these secondary ossification centers, they increase the length of the bone. Primary ossification center helps in increasing the breadth of the bone and then increasing from upside to downside. Okay, and these secondary ossification centers, they are present in children, and they are present up until we hit puberty, and or they help in making us taller and making the bone longer, and hence helping in increasing the height of a toddler, increasing the height of a child. Okay, so the place where the secondary ossification center is located is known as epiphyseal plate. This from this center the length of the bone is increased in children. From the corner the bone is covered by cartilage, that is articular cartilage. It is going to be used in forming a joint. Then there is the part of the bone that is still growing, the spongy bone, the epiphysis. Then there is metaphysis. We will discuss the other structures further in the next slides. In the center there is medullary plate, medullary cavity where the bone marrow is located, and on the sides there is periosteum. On the sides of the medullary cavity there is compact bone, that is the mature bone. Okay, here we're going to discuss structure of a long bone. So these are the proper parts of a bone. So the ends of a bone are known as epiphyses, and the middle cavity is known as diaphysis. Okay, and the place from where the bone is growing, that is known as epiphyseal plate or epiphyseal growth plate, just like the one that is shown here in white line. That is epiphyseal growth plate, this one. Okay, so on the corners the bone is covered by articular cartilage, or every long bone is covered by articular cartilage, helps in forming joints, helps in lubrication of bone. Then there is spongy bone at the sides of the bone. In the middle there is medullary cavity, and there is a covering that covers the whole bone, that is known as periosteum. There is another covering that covers the medullary cavity, that is known as endosteum. Okay, here different types of epiphyses explained. What is pressure epiphysis, traction epiphysis, atavistic and aberrant epiphysis. We're going to study and musculoskeletal system in detail, so I'm not going to go into detail of these types here. Here we are just getting an overview of the bones. Okay, so here there are names of some bones. So let's see which bones are present in the upper limb. First there is clavicle. Clavicle is the bone that connects a shoulder to or joint to sternum. It is also known as collarbone. It is the most easily breakable bone in the body and mostly broken. It is the most broken bone in human beings. It heals by itself. Then there is scapula that forms the shoulder blade located on the back side. Then there is humerus, the main bone of the arm. Then there are two bones, radius ulna, intertwined, located in the forearm. Then there are carpals and metacarpals and phalanges. 14 phalanges in total, 5 metacarpals and 8 carpals. Okay, now there are some names of processes written here. I think we don't need to go into detail of these right now. It's better if we study it in regional anatomy. Okay, remember this is the first bone that we are going to study. Very important bone, again and again. It would come in exams. This is humerus. Okay, let's talk about the function of the bone. The main function of the bone is protective function, such as the bones of skull. They protect our brain against trauma, against external factors. The bones of vertebral column protect our spinal cord from external factors, injuries. Sternum and ribs protect the thoracic cavity, the heart and the lungs, and upper abdominal viscera, such as liver is also located just below the ribs. So they provide some support, some sort of protection to liver. Mostly they protect lungs and heart. Okay. Moreover, bones serve as lever. Do you know what is a lever? We've studied it in the physics book in 10+2. Long bones of the limbs, they serve as lever. They help us in picking things up. They help us in moving. Moreover, They are storage areas of calcium. Whenever there is a shortage of calcium in our diet, we can take it off from bone, and it protects the uh, cavities within the bone. The bone marrow is located within the medullary cavity. The bones protect from the medullary cavities from external pressure, and bone marrow helps in formation of blood. So, formation of blood cells is a major function of the bones. They bone marrow contains hematopoietic stem cells. Hematopoietic stem cells are those cells which then mature and form red blood cells, white blood cells, megakaryocytes, platelets, etc. Everything is formed from these bone marrow cells. Okay, now let's just discuss the classification of bones. So, on the basis of this shape, the bones are divided into these types. First, there are long bones. Long bones are those bones which are present in our limbs, such as humerus and femur. Femur is located on in the leg, humerus in the arm. Short bones present in hand and feet, metacarpals, wrist joint and ankle joint, metacarpals and metatarsals. Then there are flat bones present in the vault of skull, ribs and scapula. These are flat bones. Some bones have irregular shape known as irregular bones, such as hip bone and vertebra. Pneumatic bones are those bones which contain a hollow cavity within them that contains air. So maxilla is a good example. Then there are sesamoid bones such as patella. Patella is a small bone, specialized structure that is present in our knee joint. Then there are some accessory bones such as sacrum, coccyx, etc. Okay, so now we'll see the different types in detail. So humerus is long bone, then carpals, metacarpals, these are short bones. The scapula, ribs are flat bones. Okay, hip bone is not shown here, or I would have showed it to you. Okay, this is basically a picture of the elbow joint. I think different processes are shown here. Okay, pneumatic bone. Maxilla is a pneumatic bone. So I'm going to clarify two terms over here. As many of the students asked earlier, what is the difference between a sinus and a fistula? I'm going to explain the sinus too, as well as I'm going to explain what is a pneumatic bone. So maxilla is a pneumatic bone. Because it contains maxillary sinuses. What is maxillary sinus? Maxillary sinus is a hollow space within the bone with one way from which the air can enter that space whenever we breathe in the air, and it is passing through the nose and then nasopharynx. It comes into contact with multiple bones which contain pneumatic sinuses. Small pockets of hollow cavities with one way to enter and exit the bone, to enter and exit that cavity. So whenever there is a hollow cavity with one way to enter or exit that cavity, that is known as a sinus, such as this one here, maxillary sinus. If there are two connections, one way to enter the cavity, and the second connection or the second way that is connected with another organ or structure containing epithelium, that is known as a fistula. So sinus is a hollow cavity, and because of this hollow cavity, maxillary bone is known as a pneumatic bone. It comes under the umbrella of pneumatic bone. Okay, so let's classify bones on the basis of their development. They can be classified as intramembranous or dermal, intracartilaginous or endochondral, and membranocartilaginous bones. Okay, what is intracartilaginous? We've already discussed these. These bones arise from endochondral ossification. They have a cartilaginous model where multiple ossification centers appear, and then the bone is based on that model. Whereas in intramembranous ossification, as you can see here, let me show you here there is no cartilaginous model present, and the ossification centers, they appear within the mesenchymal tissue by themselves. Within the mesenchymal tissue, some cells, they start transforming and they change into osteoblasts. Osteoblasts are bone forming cells. They start forming multiple ossification centers, and hence compact bones are formed, flat bones are formed from these ossification centers. As you can see, these osteoblasts are transforming these into these mesenchymal cells into bony matrix and bone. There is no involvement of cartilage here during the formation of the bone. Whereas some bones are formed via a mixture of these both of these two methods, that are membranocartilaginous bones such as clavicle and mandible. On the basis of structure, bones can be divided into two types: compact bones, also known as cortical bones, and cancellous bones, also known as spongy bones. Okay, compact bones we've seen early on. Okay, so compact bone and spongy bone are two types of bone based on their structure. Both of these types are present within the long bones as in the limbs. So if we take a look here at the structure of a bone, this central part of the bone, which is like a meshwork, is known as a part which is composed of compact bone, whereas spongy bone, whereas compact bone is present on the outlines of this bone. Basically, it surrounds the spongy bone from all the sides. Compact bone makes most of the structure of long bones, but spongy bones are a very integral part of these bones. They help in providing nutrients to the bone. Okay, so as we can see here in this picture, if we magnify this, in the mid there is the bone marrow, also known as yellow marrow. Then there is a layer that surrounds the marrow, that is endosteum. Then there is a bone, the bony structure, that is in the form of multiple layers stacked against each other. This is compact bone. And then there is the outer layer, which is periosteum. Whereas if we look at the structure of the spongy bone, it contains many spaces. These are known as trabeculae, this spacious kind of structure. On the outer side of this is the compact bone, and then there is periosteum. So here we can see it more clearly. This is compact bone, this is spongy bone that contains trabeculae. Then there is the compact bone. This one is compact bone. Okay, compact bone has many smaller structures in the shape of circular canals. This single structure of a compact bone, this is known as an osteon. A single osteon gets its nutrient supply and blood supply from this one canal through which an artery and vein passes. That is known as a Haversian canal. So as we can see here, there are multiple osteons here in compact bone. In a single osteon, there is a canal that contains the arteries and veins, and there are multiple canaliculi. Canaliculi are smaller channels through which the nutrients travel from the Haversian canal, and then there is bony lamella. Okay, here is the periosteum, the outermost membrane with its blood supply, spongy bone, then compact bone. These are networks of Haversian canals, and there are some horizontal canals which join the Haversian canals that are known as Volkmann's canals. Okay, ये जो टॉपिक है फॉर्मेशन ऑफ बोन एंड डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ बोन, ये अच्छे से समझ में तब आएगा जब बोर्ड हमारे सामने हो और ड्रॉ करके एम्ब्रियोलॉजी में स्टार्ट से एंड तक बताया जाए कि किस तरह से बोन डेवलप करती है. देन यू विल अंडरस्टैंड हाउ इज इट फॉर्म्ड एंड व्हाट इज इट्स स्ट्रक्चर एंड व्हाट इज इट्स मीनिंग. Right now you just need to know the names of different structures that are present here. That is more than enough. Okay, so the lamella of the bony tissue, or how the structures are located in an osteon. It may be circumferential. Circumferential is in circle, osteonic or interstitial. Then there is a law of ossification that is known as Wolff's law. You just need to study it once, don't need to remember it. It states that all bony surfaces other than the articulating surfaces are covered by a fibrous tissue that is known as periosteum, and periosteum has an abundant blood supply, vascular supply, and the inner layer of periosteum is osteogenic. It contains some cells which produce the bone, which grow the bone, and this periosteum is present all around the bone, but it is specially united with the bone wherever tendons, muscles or ligaments are going to attach to the bone. And there are some bundles of collagen fibers that are known as Sharp's fibers that are present within the periosteum, and then they extend into the bone. Periosteum also contains very rich nerve supply, and it is very sensitive to elements. Arterial supply of the bone. The main arterial supply is the nutrient artery that supplies the ends, the metaphyseal artery, epiphyseal artery, and periosteal artery. Periosteal artery supplies the periosteum, the outermost artery here. This one is the periosteal artery. Then there are smaller nutrient arteries. Things like that. Okay, so now we're going to discuss the thing which is going to help us in or clinical practice. What is a bone fracture? Bone fracture is any kind of traumatic event or anything else that results in discontinuation of a bony structure, a break in a bony structure. What happens after a bone fracture? Immediately after a fracture, the patient suffers severe local pain and is unable to use the injured part of the bone. And deformity may be visible if the fragments are displaced from each other. Degree of deformity of the bone depends on the mechanism of the injury, but also the pull of the muscles attached to the fragment. If there is a fracture of radius ulna and there is some, you can say, traction from the back side, the lower part is going to be present above the upper part, like that. Okay, so ligamentous attachments also influence the deformity. Fracture of a bone is accompanied by considerable hemorrhage of blood between the bone ends into the surrounding soft tissue. The blood vessels, fibroblasts, osteoblasts from the periosteum and osteum take part in the repair process. बच्चे बोन जो होती है उसमें बहुत एम्पल ब्लड सप्लाई मौजूद होती है, ब्लड वेसल्स बहुत ज़्यादा मौजूद होते हैं. Whenever there is a breakage in the structure of the bone, जब भी बोन टूटेगी ब्लड सप्लाईज वहाँ से मुतासिर होगी. जब भी ब्लड सप्लाई मुतासिर होगी, कैपिलरीज, आर्टरीज, वेन्स पंक्चर हो गई, तो वहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा ब्लीडिंग स्टार्ट हो जाएगी. देन इन्फ्लेमेशन विल सेट इन. इन्फ्लेमेशन में क्या होता है, उस एरिया का साइज़ बढ़ जाता है, रेडनेस हो जाती है, टेम्परेचर बढ़ जाता है, लॉस ऑफ फंक्शन हो जाता है. ठीक है, ये 5 चीज़ें होती हैं वहाँ पे. और देन जब बोन टूटती है तो अगर लॉन्ग बोन है, टूटी हुई अपनी जगह से, दोनों हिस्से उसके साथ साथ नहीं जुड़े हुए, एक दूसरे के ऊपर चढ़े हुए हैं या साइडों पे पड़े हुए हैं, तो वो क्लियरली हमें नज़र आ सकता है उस पर देखने में. अगर डिस्प्लेसमेंट ऐसे इस तरह से बोन के फ्रेगमेंट्स की हुई हो तो वो क्लियरली नज़र आ जाता है. और ये डिस्प्लेसमेंट डिपेंड करती है कि इंजरी किस टाइप की हुई है. बंदा नीचे गिरा है, ऊंचाई से गिरा है, छोटे छोटे पीस हो गए बोन के, एक तो वो बड़े पीस है, उस लिहाज से हमें बोन अपनी जगह से हिली हुई नज़र आएगी आफ्टर द फ्रैक्चर. और रिपेयर जो करना होता है बोन को, वो ऑस्टियोब्लास्ट्स ने करना होता है मेनली. ऑस्टियोब्लास्ट्स आर दो सेल्स विच फॉर्म osteocytes. Osteocytes are mature bone cells and osteoclasts are those cells which dissolve the bone. Okay, so clinically bone fractures are very important. Then there is another disease that is known as rickets. That is very, very important. It is a defective mineralization of cartilage, matrix and growing bones, mostly present in children. This produces a condition where the cartilage cells continue to grow and excess cartilage and widening of epiphyseal plates take place, and hence mineralization is very poor in the matrix. Bones are soft and easily breakable, and they easily bend and break under the weight. Okay, so what happens in these patients? They have enlarged costochondral junctions where the ribs are attached to the vertebra and the sternum. That is enlarged, and we can clearly see the rib cage of these patients. Bowing of long bones take place. They cannot stand on their legs. Bowing of legs takes place. And bossing of frontal bones of the skin takes place. Deformities of pelvis may also occur. Bossing is जब ये माथा जो होता है ये बाहर की तरफ निकल आता है. It forms a arch-like pattern and it extends and it can be seen as an extension on the outside, and pelvic deformities may also be present. Okay, what is epiphyseal plate? Epiphyseal plate वो होती है जहाँ से bone grow कर रही होती है in children. It is growing in length in children and it grows up to puberty. अगर उसका डिसऑर्डर होगा तो कद छोटा रह जाएगा. Due to trauma, infection, diet, exercise, endocrine disorders, growth of hyaline cartilaginous plate or epiphyseal growth plate takes place. And deformity and loss of function of that particular place occurs. On the other hand, sometimes length of the limbs can increase excessively because of increased vascularity in epiphyseal plate, secondary to tumors, such as in excessive production of growth hormone. There is gigantism. 7.5-8 फुट के बंदे होते हैं. वो आपने रेसलर तो देखा होगा, द ग्रेट काली. ही हैज़ जाइगेंटिज्म. ग्रोथ हार्मोन की एक्सेसिव रिलीज की वजह से होता है. सो वो हो सकता है, या फिर शॉर्टनिंग ऑफ लिम्स हो सकती है, जैसे एकोंड्रोप्लेजिया में होती है. छोटे जो पौने रह जाते हैं, छोटे कद के रह जाते हैं लोग, उनमें हम देख सकते हैं. सो any trauma or excessive stimulation to epiphyseal growth plate may result in excessive lengthening of limbs or shortening of limbs. Now here is a regional classification of bones. How many bones are there and how many regions are there? Okay, so you may just need to take a look at these things. That would be enough, I think. What is orthrology? Orthrology is the study of joints. Compound joints are those joints in which more than two bones ends meet and form a single capsule. Complex joints are those joint cavities that are divided by fibrocartilage discs, such as temporomandibular joint. Temporomandibular joint is the joint that is present between the temporal bone of the skull and the mandible of the chin. Mandible bone. Okay, then there is sternoclavicular joint. Clavicle or collarbone meets the sternum, forms a complex joint, and the knee joint. Knee joint is a very good example of complex joints. There are multiple tendons, multiple bones involved, and multiple processes present there. We'll study it in the regional anatomy section. Okay, so what are different structures that may be present in some joints? First, there is a disc. Disc is a simple structure that acts as a shock absorbent, mostly present in between the vertebrae. It strengthens the joint and provides smooth articulation of the joint. There may be a menisci. Menisci are semilunar cartilage in knee joints. चांद को आधा कर ले, आधा सी, वैसे छोटे छोटे से ये होते हैं cartilaginous structures knee joint में. Those are known as menisci. Okay. There may be some ligaments that are traversing the joint. Ligaments are simple kind of extensions of different muscles that keep the joint in place. Such as, an example is given here, the ligament in teres of hip joint, or the cruciate ligament that keeps uterus in place. Both of these ligaments they cross the joint. Labrum glenoid is the glenoid cavity that are present in the shoulder and the hip joint. Then muscles may be present in the joint, such as in shoulder joint. There is long head of biceps present. In knee joint, popliteal tendon is present. So the joints are basically the place where two or more bones join each other. The ends of bones join each other. Okay, so the joints are classified on the basis of can be classified on the basis of structure or the axis of movement. If we classify them on the axis of movement, they may be multi-axial, biaxial, or uniaxial. Multi-axial means which may move in different directions, such as ball and socket joints. Ball and socket joints are present in the shoulder, the hip, can be moved in different directions, more than two directions. Biaxial may only be moved in two directions, such as saddle joints and ellipsoidal joints. Uniaxial, which can only be moved in one direction. Hinge joints and pivot joints. Good example of uniaxial joint is our neck joint. We can only turn the atlantoaxial joint. Atlantoaxial joint can only turn the neck from right side to left side. There is no other movement in that joint. Whereas in biaxial joint, there will be a extension, flexion of muscles can take place at that joint. Okay, on the basis of structure, joints can be divided into fibrous joints and cartilaginous joints. Further subtypes of fibrous joints are suture joints, syndesmosis joints, and gomphosis joints. Cartilaginous joints can be further divided into primary cartilaginous joints and secondary cartilaginous joints. Okay, so that marks all for today. We are going to study the joints and lymphatic system, circulatory system in the next lecture, inshallah. Okay, I hope all of you are following the lectures closely and are trying to study the best you can, because I'm thinking of taking a brief test of the topics that we've studied, and it may be in the next week, I guess, at the start of the next month, before 10th of next month. I may take a test, small test, so be ready for that. And Ramzan Mubarak to all of you. Take care, stay at your homes, and I hope that the atmosphere clears up and this pandemic actually of coronavirus dies up, so that we can head back to China and take the classes as they are meant to be taken. Okay, so Allah Hafiz, take care.